Welcome back to my car shop. Today we are back on the Stitches Challenger doing something that's just a little bit different. Let's give this car a proctology exam. Don't know what I mean? Let's watch the show intro and you'll see in about 30 seconds. I'm Mike and this is my car's shop.
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is my car's shop.
Well, as you know, in the last episode that we did, I injured myself, and as is typical of me, I don't know the meaning of the word slow down. So I've been really busy working around the property, shredding branches and chipping wood and working and just getting really sweaty and probably doing way more than I should. The hospital has no idea what they're saying when they tell me that I don't have any restrictions. So anyway, I blew a stitch already, and it's healing okay, but I decided to do something a little bit calmer today than getting under stitches and finishing the welding, putting that frame rail in. Another reason is, as you can see behind me here, the rotisserie is there still wrapped up in its bubble wrap. And two things, I don't want to be welding with all of that plastic so close because sparks, plastic, 100-year-old barn, lots of cars, and tools, and equipment, and parts. Well, you know what I'm saying. Don't want to make fire. No, fire not good. Not good at all. I thought what we would do today is do a proctology exam on stitches. Oh, I don't mean this part of the car. We've definitely had our head up underneath its rear end a lot. But I'm literally meaning the rear end. So let's spin you around and you'll see what I'm talking about. So I went out and dug out the rear end that we had brought home when we brought the Forsyth Duster home and brought it in here to the shop. I thought it's a good opportunity today to go through this rear end with you. I have no idea what's in it. I know it came out of a circle track dirt car. I'm expecting maybe we will see that the gears are welded in it, so that is a solid posi. They may not be. No, it looks like they are. Well, either that or it does have a posi in it, which I doubt it does. But anyway, I have no idea what gear's in it. I don't even know what center trunk is in it. So we're going to go ahead and give this thing a good look over and tear it apart and see what's inside of it and give it a really good rear end examination. You know, because it's a lot like proctology. We're going to delve into it. It's going to stink really bad, and we're probably going to find a lot of crap inside there. Okay, I'm grossing myself out. I know that on our channel we have people with skill levels of the whole spectrum, and for those of you who know everything, you're wrong. There's still things to be reviewed and refresh your memory on, and for those of you who don't know much, this will be an education in the Mopar 8 3/4 rear end. So get her set up here on some jack stands, hopefully, and start tearing into it, see what we got. So a couple of things about Dodge rear ends. There are many different types of rear ends that can be put in a car. There is a 7 1/4, an 8 1/4, 9 1/4, 8 3/4, Dana. This is an 8 3/4 rear end, which means that the center section, which is where the ring and the pinion are, actually bolt into the housing as a complete unit, where the other ones all have a cover over on the back side from this direction back here. They bolt on and the ring and pinion is loaded into the housing. So this unit is the only one of the Mopars that you can actually take the whole center trunk out as a unit separate, and nothing loads into the axle housing itself except for the axles and the bearings. The second thing then is How to identify those, that's a subject for another time, so we'll skip over that. But there are also 3 different types of center chunks or center sections for the 8 3/4 rear end. There's the 741 case, the 742 case, and the 489 case. So let's go through what those are real quick. The 489 case is the big boy. That's the strongest one. That's got the bigger ring and the bigger pinion bearings in it, I should say. And so it's the strongest of them all. The 742 was probably the most common. And that one has smaller bearings. I can't remember the sizes. And then the 741, which came in the A bodies only, which are your Dusters and your Darts and your Valiants and your Scamps. And the 741 housing has the smallest pinion bearings in it. So this one is a 741 case. You can see by these numbers right here. See if we can zoom you in there. There we go. So you can see, I don't remember what these numbers mean, but this is the significant numbers right here. So we know that even though this is an E-body housing, which means it came out of a Dodge Challenger or a Cuda. In this case, I'm pretty sure it came out of a roundy round dirt circle track Challenger. This is a 741 case, which means that in its life, and it's obvious by the silicone here, this center chunk was taken out and replaced and put in this housing. This E-body, this Challenger housing would never have come from the factory with a 741 in it. That was an A-body only thing. So it came in the light cars. The small pinion wasn't as strong, and it wasn't built to handle the thrashing of big blocks and so forth. So 741 means A-body only. So I have several 741 cases around upstairs in the barn. I have some 742 cases also. I don't know if I have any more 489s. I'm going to have to look. I will most like, unless this is a posi, if it's a posi, which I doubt, but if it is, I'll probably use this one, but otherwise I'll swap it out for a 742. I don't know what I'm going to do, because I don't know what I'm going to find when I get in there. So the first thing we need to do is get the dirt and all of the, well, the stuff that's like this stuff, and the mud and the dirt that's all over it, and just get it cleaned up a little bit, and then we will start showing you how to tear apart a Mopar 8 3/4 rear end. So the first thing we want to do is remove the axles, and there's 4 bolts or 5 bolts or something like that. I think there's 5 bolts on each end to access through here, so we can take those bearings out and slide those axles out. Hopefully they're not stuck and they'll come out. We have to do that on both sides. One thing I failed to point out on the other side is there are 3 holes here, and the larger one is the one you use to put your socket through to reach into the bolts, and so you can reach. So you just go to each bolt, spin it, another bolt, and spin it. So I'll do this one on regular time so you can kind of see how it works. Go around to each one. I'm not taking them off all the way so I can get the nuts out of the socket, because I kept getting them stuck on the other side. Now I can just spin them off my hand. I'm also not using my strong impact. I'm using the Chicago pneumatic that I've had for 30 years. Doesn't have quite as much power. I feel like that's a little bit safer on things like this, so I don't end up mucking up the threads or screwing up a stud. It's still an impact. I am amazed that those come out that easy. The other thing I'm noticing, and I'll bring you over here and show you. Usually on one of these axles there is an adjuster to adjust the preload on the bearing, and this one doesn't, which tells me this has probably had different bearings put in it, but they're taper bearings, so that doesn't make sense. They don't use, I've not seen one like this before. So either somebody put different bearing retainers on, or there's something I'm not aware of because I don't know everything. But neither of them have. There's usually a threaded collar in here to tighten the bearing preload, and I'm not seeing that on this one. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't see what's holding what the adjustment is for bearing preload on the axles. So interesting. Could be shims. Maybe there's a shim in there, but I don't think so. I gotta look at a couple of my other 8 3/4 and see what they have. I was also just recently asked how to tell the gear ratio on a rear end without tearing it apart. So if the rear end is untouched, which this one I know has been apart, but I wanted to see. There's going to be a tag on here, on behind one of these bolts, that'll say like 3.23, 3.55, 3.91, something like that, and that will be your gear ratio. If you don't have that, another way you can do it is with the axles in is to spin this and count the number of revolutions over here. That's a way to get you in the ballpark. Of course, if you don't want to do that and you want to know the exact ratio, then you need to get into it, tear the center chunk out, and read the numbers off the ring and pinion, which I'll show you how to do that once we get it out of here. So the next step then is to go around and take out all of these nuts and get it out of there. This does have, I think this is the big yoke, I'm pretty sure it is. So that's probably been changed too, because they would have put the small yoke. No, I think that actually is a small yoke. The big one's just a bit bigger. But all the E-bodies would have had the big yokes on them also. I think this is the A-body yoke, which is just a bit smaller. I'd have to have one here to hold up to it to look. I've got lots of extra yokes and all that stuff around here, but we have no idea what we're putting in the car yet. So, and again, I try not to take them all the way off because you get the nuts stuck in the socket. We've got one nut that's rusted down to a smaller size. So I don't have a 6-point socket here. I should have been using a 6-point. I'm using a 12-point. Hopefully a 6-point will get it. If not, we'll get a metric socket. Just that's going to be close to the right size to slip on there and get it out of there. A couple of these are just a bit tight to get my hand. Now remember, there's also going to be gear oil inside of here, or there should be, hopefully, maybe. In this case, all there is water. Yuck. So I'm going to leave this one bolt down here tight until I get a pan under there. But we got to get this one off of here with a smaller socket or a 6-point, so I'll be right back. All right, we've got our oil pan under there, and I've got the 6-point socket that, yeah, I do. I promise I do. Wow, where the flip did I put that? Camera was dying. I had to plug it in, and I set the socket down on the bench. So anyway, I got the 6-point. It's really sloppy. I'd probably be better off going with a metric, but I'm going to try this first. No, it's not doing it. So we got to find a metric to get that off of there, or we're going to have to basically cut it off. Bummer. I think we can get a metric on there. Not the way I prefer to do it, but it's worn so much that even a 13 millimeter won't go. So I'm going, 14 millimeters too big, 13 is too small. So I'm taking an old 1/2-inch socket that I have and just driving it on there. Okay, I'm gonna have a heck of a time getting that out of there, but this should work to get it out of there. Not ideal. I'd rather not cut it, because then I have to mess with changing the stud. I potentially could damage the stud, and I don't want to do that. So hopefully. Okay, it's almost out, and I took the nut off out of the socket so that I can hopefully get, the chance of getting it out of there while still getting the nut out of the socket. Nothing worse than having to try to pound that nut out of there. Okay, one more to get out now over here. It's nice to have something to sit on. Nice squishy mats. Good for the old antique rear end. I'm not talking about the one for the car. All right, so if there's any oil in this rear end, once we break this loose, the water is going to come out first because we know there's water in it, and then the oil should come out because oil floats on top of water, right? And you saw a bunch of water and now a bunch of gear oil. So not as much water in there as I thought there might be, and I'm glad there's a lot of oil in there. So I don't have the nut all the way loose because I don't want it to just like fall apart and dump, and this will fall on the ground, and then we'll just have stuff, and I don't want to have stuff. I don't want to make a mess. I've just spent 2 days cleaning the shop. So we will let that drain out, and then we'll get this center chunk out of here and see what we've got. Very glad to see this has the brake distribution block on it. That's good. We'll obviously put all new lines and wheel cylinders and stuff and other stuff, and then we'll put some more stuff, and then we'll have new stuff all around. Don't know if I have any brake drums for this. I'll have to look around. But if not, we'll put new ones on it, because why not? Actually, we might do that anyway because they're not that expensive. So we will see what our local auto parts has in cheap brake parts to fix this thing up on the down low. So I'm going to take this nut out now with this up in the air so that I can pull that center chunk directly out. Hopefully. Now I gotta get myself up here with my bad knees. Oh, there we go. Okay. I should have had something to set this in, but I don't. These are heavy, very heavy, but we got it. Definitely not a posi, and I'll show you how I know that. And I'm thinking it's got welded gears. Yep, it's welded for sure. So as we said, we've got the center chunk out here now, and I can look down in here and see that it's definitely been welded, which I expected because, like I said, it was a circle track car, dirt. And then to know what this gear ratio is, all we got to do is spin this around until we see the numbers stamped in the ring gear. Okay, there's supposed to be numbers stamped in the ring gear there. Not seeing any. Oh, they're filled with oil, that's why they're right there. Yep. Of course, it has to be upside down, so I can't read it. Looks like it's a 291. I'm going to spin it the rest of the way around and make sure. So about a 3 to 1 rear ratio, which that's not a common gear, 291, but it definitely was a thing if I remember right. So here's the numbers I saw that initially led me to think it was a 291. However, there was no decimal point in there. So making sure I don't drop the camera in the gear oil. This is a 294 gear right here, you can see. There's our stamping number and 2.94. That tells me that it's, like I said, a 3-1 rear end, so 294. What I ideally want in this car is probably a 323 in a 742 or a 489 case. So let's take a little venture, and we'll take a little rag and go up to where I keep my center chunks and see what we've got. Well, I'm puzzled. I know I have a 742 case, and all I have here are 3 741s. So it means I now have 4 741 cases, And I can't turn these because they're rusty, so I have no idea what the gear ratios are. Time to do some digging. I am sure that there is a Bear K742 around here somewhere. Well, we'll find it. Anyway, lots of small block heads and intakes and 4-speed shifters and other junk, but I've got to dig around in my other parts stashes and see why I can't find it. I've got to do some pondering. I know I had a 742 case, at least one if not two. I had a Bear case with bearing caps, nothing in it. And I'm pretty sure I had another one with a gear in it. And I thought actually I only had one 741 case in that pile. I thought the other two were 742s. So, a little bit of head scratching. I'm quite sure nobody stole it because nobody knows where I'm at. And you take your life in your hands to get up there, and I haven't found any dead bodies. So, interesting. So anyway, I may have to pick up another center chunk. I'll show you what it means to have a welded rear end and why it's not recommended. I mean, for dirt, fine, who cares what these guys were doing back in the 80s and 90s. Completely understandable, this stuff was a dime a dozen. But we would never want to do this on the street, and I'll show you why. So we'll do that in just a second. But, gonna have to start scouring and scratching my head. I'm wondering if I helped a buddy out at some point. Matter of fact, this is sounding familiar. Like he was putting a car together, and I think he needed a center chunk, and I just gave him one to use and said, just get me another one when you get to a swap meet, and never did. Which, with that particular individual, that was very common. So I've learned that lesson over the years, but doesn't change what is. So, but I had two of them. I'm almost positive I did. And I don't think it's over on the north side of the barn because I don't put heavy parts. All the heavy stuff goes on that south end. So, not sure. We'll find one, no big deal. If I need to, I can throw together one of these 741 cases and put it in there temporarily, or I can put the 7 1/4 back in. Probably not a good idea though, because the 7 1/4 requires a different drive shaft length than the 8 3/4. So if you think about a 7 1/4 differential, the pinion is going to be, the whole thing's going to be shorter. So the 8 3/4 is about 1 3/4 or 1 1/2 short, bigger, which means the drive shaft is going to be about 1 to 1 1/2 shorter to fit that. So I don't want to have to source two drive shafts. And it's going to be a common thing to find a drive shaft for this. I'm sure the specs are out there online. I need a drive shaft so long. I used to just go to the junkyard, go to a pile with a tape measure, find any old drive shaft that was the right length. Didn't matter if it was a Ford, GM, Dodge, couldn't care less. I would just buy the adapter joints to make them work. And so we may still do that. I think the one place I used to go still has about 5,000 drive shafts in a pile, and they're all sorted by length, and you just take your tape measure and say that one. So, all right, let's show you what a welded rear end looks like. So this is what a welded rear end looks like, but let's do a little bit of discussion of how a rear end is built first. So you see that we have side gears here. This gear here and this gear here are called the side gears. Those are the ones that the axles slide into to bring drive out to the wheel. And then you have the differential gears or the spider gears or whatever these things are called, I don't remember. And those are what, when one wheel spins and the other one doesn't, those gears spin to allow one axle to slip. So a lot of people call it a one-wheel rear end. It's really not, but whichever axle has the least resistance will slip and the other one just stops turning. So what they do in this case is, in a welded rear end, is they weld the spider gears and the side gears to the cross pin. So you can see weld down in here, there's weld over there, there's also weld right here. And if you look at this weld, this is broken. So if I can get my finger in there, see that weld? They welded the spider gears to the side gears, and that's broken from racing. So that means that there are other welds that are broken as well. Matter of fact, it looks like on this one, the cross pin is broken, or the weld, there's a weld right here to the cross pin. I think that's broken as well. And you can see stuff moving down here. Of course, that also means that this weld down here is broken. So all of those welds are broken. It's okay because there's so much weld in there. It's all jammed together. But That is a welded rear end that is broken. And of course, we don't want to use that on the street. On a dirt track, there's not as much resistance on the tires, and so it's not as big a deal, but even still it broke. But on the street, we would just end up with ground metal in there. The second thing that I said I was going to do was talk about how you can tell if it's a posi. There's two types of posies. There's a cone type and a clutch type. The cone type aren't as easy to tell, but there's still springs in here and things like that. And the clutch type actually has a clutch pack over on this side that causes, when one starts to slip, it puts pressure on the clutches and causes the other one to try to drive. So I said posi, shame on me. That's a slang term. I know it's a GM thing. Positrack rear end. Mopars are sure grips. I apologize for that. Don't crucify me over that. Just to give you a little bit of the rear end theory anyway. So ring gear, the pinion gear is the one that drives it, spins up here. This is the carrier, and of course the housing that it's all in. In this case, we're in a traditional rear end. This actually is a cover, and all of these components here bolt in here underneath that cover. But this is a front loader style like the 8 3/4 and the 9-inch. So just a little bit of history on a Mopar. The axle tubes are different. That helps you identify one is stepped down, one is stepped up, etc. And then of course the cover, the bolt pattern determines by the shape of that bulbousness there, the pan that would bolt on there helps you determine what's a 7 1/4 or what's an 8 1/4 rear end. These are all the 69 Charger parts here. And I don't think there's an 8 3/4 chunk in there, and I'm pretty sure that Joe bought a 323 or 355 posi unit at a swap meet that was complete that he just bolted into that car. So don't think I set one aside for him. I don't know. I'm going to scratch my head on that one for a while. Somebody has a 742 chunk that they want to get rid of, let me know, I guess, until I can find mine. I know I've got them. I even looked through, I have a whole pile of 8 3/4 rear ends, and I looked through out there, and they're just bare housings and axles. I usually tried to pull the chunks out of them so the gears didn't rust. So I'm puzzled. But anyway, we've done a proctology exam here on the rear end, and got all the stinky stuff out and got it all opened up and did an in-depth evaluation and looked deep inside, and it's no good. It's cancerous and useless. And okay, we're taking the analogy way too far, way too far. But anyway, we know what we've got. So the next step is I want to get this up to a power wash, give it a good blasting down on the outside, and we'll get it wire brushed, strip all the brake lines off and stuff, and then we'll get it painted up, and we will start putting this thing back together again so that we have the rear end ready to go in the car at some point in the future. There's no hurry on this. We're obviously still welding the frame in. Got to put the subframe connectors in. The car has to go on the rotisserie. We've just got a lot of stuff to do because we got to do floor pans and window openings and long division and short division, and golly gee, Uncle Jed. It's also mail call here in the shop, and some of you who have watched any of the MKS on the road episodes will remember that in Texas we bought something. So for those that haven't seen it, I'm not going to tell you what it is. We'll just open the package. But it was something that I purchased from a fellow in Texas that my son Joe went and picked up for me, brought to his place. I looked at it when I was there, and then he finally got around, not finally, it was no hurry because I'm a long ways away from needing this, but he got around to shipping it back here. It's been here for probably close to a month in the box, and I thought today would be an appropriate time to unbox it and just share it with you guys one more time. So obviously it's the steering column and the steering wheel with the steering adapter for the Challenger. We don't have a key for this. I will go through my 763.6 keys that I have and see if I have anything that will work, because once in a while you just get lucky. But I probably don't, so we'll have to tear this apart and put a new tumbler in it. No big deal. Don't know how the bearings are because it doesn't turn. To ship it, he snipped off the blinker arm, which I told him to do because it was easier to just ship it, and we'll replace that at the same time. It was really rusty. This is the steering wheel that came with it. The horn button I have in the house, I brought it home with me as just so I had a little something. And we'll go over and get the other steering wheel and show you what I already had for the car. I already had a spare bellows, or whatever you want to call it, steering wheel adapter. So I have 2 of those, and of course 2 steering wheels. This one is in a lot better shape. It's exactly the same wheel. When I got this one, the guy had several of them. He said, take my pick. I picked this one. It's cracked. This one isn't. So I don't know what direction I'm going to go. This steering wheel itself is actually in better shape, but the chrome is just trashed. So what I'm guessing I will do is paint this with chrome paint and just call it good, because it's a driver. I don't care if it's original. I could paint it silver. I could paint it, well, tell me what you think would look cool to paint it, because one of the things that I'm also contemplating doing on this car that I don't think I've said, I've been looking at non-rally dash instrument clusters and dash pads and that stuff, and it's going to come down to dollars, and it's going to come down to time, just where I'm at the time. But I'm gonna keep looking. I'm hoping to find a reasonable dash core, something that's not all beat up that I can just throw in there. If it's got a couple cracks, I'll patch it up the best I can. But what I've actually been thinking about doing is making a custom dash panel with custom gauges and making a custom dashboard for the car. Not sure if I want to take on a project of that magnitude. You've heard me discuss making the door panels before. I'm still leaning towards that. Really want to take this further as living up to its name of stitches, but I also know the amount of time that takes. So tell me your thoughts. What do you want to see? Do you want to see me try to make that? The instrument panel is easy. The dash could be challenging, could be fun. It's always fun if it's challenging. Maybe make it out of aluminum? I don't know. Maybe make it out of metal and put my own dash pad on it? I don't know. Tell me your thoughts. What would you like to see? Do you want me just to go out and buy a dash and throw in it and screw it? May do that anyway, but give me your ideas. I'm always looking for projects that I can show you that are different than what other people are doing on the channel, but I don't want to bore you to tears either. So of course, I guess if you're bored to tears, you'll have not gotten this far in the video, so you won't even be hearing any of this. Well, now that I've done all of this work for you, I got to do something with all this stuff. Kind of felt that way yesterday when I unboxed the rotisserie, but we got that squirreled away, and of course we'll get this all squirreled away somewhere, and it'll be all good. The rear end can probably go under the car where the 7 1/4 rear end is. We'll figure it out. No big deal. Beautiful day, so the 47 can sit out and enjoy the sunshine today. That's not going to hurt a thing. And I'll chip away at this as I have time. I've still got more cleaning I want to get done. There's a lot more coming as far as shop improvements, so we may go through that when we do that if you want to see some of the improvements we're doing. I'm always trying to give you a variety of content, spanning the globe to bring you a constant variety of shop stuff. No, that's not it. Anyway, so again, drop comments down there. What do you want to see? What do you want to see me do? Think of me like your little monkey on a string and I'll dance for you if I can. So a lot more coming on the Challenger as soon as I'm healed up. Should have a guest up here in the shop next week if all works out. I'm excited about that. I am going to be working on the 73 Swinger. I got to throw a starter in that. Probably not going to film that because I don't know what you could see under there. There's not much to see. It's a starter, and you've got. We did one on the Charger, and I was able to film it while Joe worked on it, but it was tough. So I'm just not sure that makes for an exciting episode. But the magic smoke came out of the starter on that car, so. It won't turn over anymore, and I'm 99% sure the starter's bad. Got a good starter upstairs. It just needs a new set of contacts in it. This has got good contacts, but the motor's shot. So we may do an episode on fixing that. I don't know. Tell me what you want to see. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, why the heck not? Do it. Do it now. Do it. Do it now. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that thing down there and hit the bell and receive all those. That was a terrible one. I'm sorry. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, spread the word, share the channel with other people whom you think might like it. We're on Facebook and Instagram /MyCarShop. I'm going to shut up now, and you guys can just rock.